Yes, the Monk Institute, I don't think it started out strictly as a graduate program, but it was a 2-year diploma program, and it started out at the New England Conservatory in Boston. And I was actually in the very first class ever. I was actually, my dad, you know, he was not happy that, he was not thrilled that I wanted to be a musician, as my folks wanted me to be a doctor. But when I told them about jazz, they really, what? You know, they had no frame of reference for that. So he was said, you need to find out about graduate programs in classical piano, and blah, blah. So I sent off to a bunch of schools, and NEC was one of them. And I remember getting the brochure, and there was just a 2-line thing announcing the first Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz performance. And it was amazing. It was a full scholarship at a, you know, Northeastern school. You know, I'm from Houston, Texas, so everything up there, woo, like the Holy Grail, Juilliard, it's like the Ivory Tower. And I probably in the back of my mind said, there's no way I can get in, because they only accepted 1 student of each instrument to form a band. It was very small student body, 7 students. But lo and behold, I got in, and that's how I first came to the East Coast. And it was very intense, because it was an unusual program. Their goal was to recreate as much as possible in a school setting how jazz had been taught and learned up to that point, which was on the bandstand from the master to the apprentice. So there really wasn't a class curriculum. I remember only having to take 1 jazz history class, and the rest was time spent with the masters. You know, our first teacher was Clark Terry, and then Jimmy Heath, and Jackie McLean, and Wynton Marsalis, and people like that. It was, I remember freaking out on a regular basis, because, you know, here are people on my CDs, and they're standing right in front of me teaching me, and that was exactly what I needed. You know, it was Ron Carter was the artistic director, so it was a really great kick in the pants for 2 years, you know, straight just immersing myself, catching up. And, you know, sometimes I kick myself and say, I wish I didn't start so late, I'm always behind. But I think it's good, because I don't think I'm ever gonna feel, I'm not ever gonna be able to feel complacent or like I've reached it, or, you know, because it's always gonna be just, you know, what's next? And just that feeling of excitement about jazz music. I feel very fortunate to be playing this music today. Well, at the Monk Institute, definitely Ron Carter. I remember one thing he said, you want to develop your own voice, you need to write music. And he would have us write a song. He would visit us maybe once every 2 weeks, and we would have to have a song ready for him. And you know, as a classical pianist, coming from the classical world, I never composed music. I never thought I would write music. And just the fact that I've written stuff that I actually play and kind of like, I think is so funny and great. Clark Terry was very important. The whole language of the articulation and phrasing of jazz, he has such a unique sense, and it all comes from the horn players anyway. And how can I on piano replicate that nuance? He had this daddle deedle doddle doddle doodle thing. I'm gonna mess it up, but it's just so amazing. Barry Harris taught me so much about bebop. That's one thing I just, you know, I'll be chasing for the rest of my life, and he really unlocked that. John Faddis. You know, I was afraid before he came, because I heard like he was a jokester and could be kind of mean sometimes, but he turned out to be one of my favorite teachers. I remember, I'll never forget, the first time he heard me play, he said, Helen, you don't know enough about the blues. I said, really? He said, you need to learn about the blues. And he made me learn Ray Bryant's solo on After Hours on that album Sunny Side Up with Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins and Dizzy. And for years after, when I would bump into him, there was piano, play that solo for me. And I'm so grateful he did that. And getting to meet Wayne Shorter, you know, who's just my idol in terms of writing and the whole musicianship, and Herbie, it's just such a privilege to meet these artists and hang out with them, spend time with them, and because I think that's a big part of it too, just being around that generation. They have just such a richness in their experience. You know, a lot of it is hard experience, but you know, I think that's one of the beauties of jazz, how it manages to transform something that's ugly or something that's very difficult, painful, tragic, wrong, injustice, into something that's so life-giving and, you know, affirming and beautiful and eternal. Hi, I'm Helen Sung. If you enjoyed this video, please visit jazztimes.com for much more.